Welcome to the Football Show on PLZ Soccer, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin. It's Tuesday. Alan Ruff is alongside me. Delighted to see joining us on the show tonight from the Herald and Evening Times, Alison McConnell once more to look back at some of the football from the weekend, and the topics emerging today also involve Scotland. You can tell it's International Week, Ruffy. We've spread our net far and wide as the domestic football shuts down. There are people who absolutely cannot stand the fact that domestic football shuts down and international football takes centre stage.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of managers don't like international football because a lot of dressing rooms will be empty. I'm talking about obviously the top teams like Celtic and Rangers, who players will be away, and sometimes you don't know what they're going to be like when they come back, injury-wise. So, no, it's a big game. Yeah,
it's great for you though, Ruffy, because you get a wee bit of focus away from Partick Thistle and the pressure that you're all under at the moment.
No, we've actually got a game on Saturday, so the pressure is still there. We've got an away game against Falkirk, so yeah, we're looking forward to that.
Okay, it's going to end sometime, Ruffy, don't worry about it, you'll be okay. Alison, you were there at the press conference. I mean, I think it's changed days at Scotland now. They throw out 300 players or anyone that's fit to talk about the game, because this one seems to be a case of so many players calling off. Now we have Ryan Jack out and Michael Devlin a problem.
Yeah, I would fully expect actually that Michael Devlin might be the next one to withdraw, which gives you a real problem across the back four, I think, because when you have a look at it, you're really wondering about which personnel is going to go in there, and people are maybe going to be taken out of position just so that you can get a team out in the park. And the one that jumps out at you right away when you see Ryan Jack withdrawn today is where Kieran Tierney plays, because for me there's a real issue at right back now. And we've seen Kieran Tierney play there before. I don't think you get the best out of him, but you know he's competent enough to go and play the position, and he understands it. But I do think it is a compromise when you're going to play him on his opposite side.
Yeah, I would like to actually try and pick the side at the moment, Ruffy. It's getting ever more difficult. I mean, I take Ali's point with Kieran Tierney. I don't like him in the right back position, but needs must. Then you're starting to say to yourself, well, of the 9 withdrawals, could be 10 on the way. You're starting to say, well, who's going to start in the back line to keep it solid? And then middle to front, are we going to get goals from midfield, and who's playing up front?
Yeah, I think the bigger problem for me as well, and it will be Alec McLeish, although we might dig out an 11, there's going to be injuries in that game. So who's going to be on the bench? You know, and it's usually the last 20 minutes of these games where sometimes you need to turn the game around, and it's the people who come off the bench. So we're really stretched. I mean, nobody's even talking about formations, 3 at the back, 4 at the back. I think Alec will just sit down and look at a list of players who are actually fit and then decide where they're going to play.
Yeah, of course, Johnny Russell is quick to point out that regardless of all the call-ups, he's there. He's travelled a good few thousand miles, and he'll go a good few thousand more if Scotland keep calling him.
I was out of squad for so long, and I said I would do anything to be back in. And you know, as people brought up the distance before, but I've said that, you know, it's not a distance that I wouldn't travel to come back and play for my country. So it's not something that would ever stop me.
Yeah, that's the attitude I like, Alison, because there are a few who think, well, you know, I'd rather play Premier League football in England than make the journey.
It's interesting, isn't it? You wonder about the guys who have made it clear that they didn't want to get picked for one of the least attractive fixtures. Albania away, I think, isn't the sexy fixture that's going to have people falling over themselves to turn up. But you just wonder what happens next if the guys who have made it clear that they didn't want to be considered, is there a way back in for them after this?
Well, there's not. No way. Surely. Shut the door. You don't want to play for Scotland in the less fashionable games. Forget it when it gets to a situation, dare I say it, fingers crossed, that we get somewhere.
Absolutely, you've got to see. If you were picking the team, that's exactly what you would want. I mean, you want somebody with Johnny Russell's mentality to say, I'll sacrifice whatever it takes to go and play for my country. But you would have to question whether or not that's the same mentality that's run through the squad as a whole.
Yeah, I hope it is, Ruffy.
Yeah, I think we all hope it is. I mean, I was fortunate enough to pull on that jersey. It's a tremendous feeling to do that and represent your country, to stand there knowing that you know the country's right behind you, and it's difficult to get your head around. I mean, Barry's talked about it as well. You know, it's the be all and end all as far as I'm concerned. It's just unfortunate that some players don't see it that way, and I think we all have a guess that it's a financial sway that they have. You know, they're looking after their careers. They don't want to get injured. They want to, you know, continue with their own club. And it's unfortunate because, as I said on numerous occasions, players I played with, Graham Souness, Ken Dalglish, John Robertson, used to bust a gut after their game on a Saturday to get on that plane to make sure they were there in time. Yeah,
I have to say, and I'm going to try and throw in a line of objectivity on this, there are some players who have decided to call it a day for legitimate reasons, where quite simply they would just never be able to play because they're picking up injuries. It would be to the detriment of their career, or there are other circumstances which they don't want to divulge to us, which is another thing. And then there are players who just think, you know, financially, you know, Scotland, it's not attractive. They're getting gubbed more often than not. We're not qualifying for any campaign, Alison, so, you know, my commitment's not there. I have to say, though, Ruffy, there were people in your day who called off every now and then as well. It's not all, you know, sweetness and light going back and being nostalgic about it.
No, I think away back then, I mean, not with Souness and Dalglish, because they'd made a name for themselves. Away back then, playing for Scotland was a stepping stone to a big club.
Yeah.
You know, if you played in your international side and you were a big player and winning games against England and going to World Cups and going to thingies, that was a stepping stone for you getting out of Dundee United or getting out of Aberdeen or getting out and moving to big clubs. That's not the case now.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone to therapy now, Alison.
I also think what you touch on there is really at the discretion of the management too, because if you're phoning players and you're in dialogue with them, you know yourself who's genuine, like as what you're saying, they have a genuine injury, I need to go and get fit, and you're able to separate that from the Albania away just doesn't really tickle my taste buds here.
Yeah, yeah. But by that point, I think managers should take a hard line on it. Don't want to play for Scotland, fine. I'm not going to ask you again.
I think you've got to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I certainly think you've got to be seen to do it.
Yeah, Ruffy has on more than a few occasions asked us to continually explain the Nations League to him. That's our 5-hour special, which is out at 2 o'clock in the morning for Ruffy only. But as far as this game coming up against Albania, we are hoping we can get a positive result there, and then in front of what we hope will be a big crowd at Hampden against Israel, just seal it all off with a win over the Israelis. Well, Johnny Russell has his view on the two games coming up.
We know that it's two massive games, must-win games. All the boys know that, so it's time to get our head down and get to work. It's going to be difficult. We know that they beat Israel there. We know it's going to be a difficult game. They cost us a couple of problems at home as well. So we know that it's going to be difficult. Always is travelling, but we know that we need to go and win the game.
I thought technically at times at Hampden they looked okay. Albania, I think they could cause us problems in their own patch.
I don't think Scotland just now have the right to turn up and expecting to beat anyone. I think you've got to give every team a bit of respect, and I absolutely agree. I think you have to be on your game if you're going to take anything from this game. It's a tricky place to go. It's uninviting. You have to go with the right mentality. I think it's long gone are the days when Scotland could expect to go out against a so-called lesser nation and turn up and just take the points. Yeah,
yeah, you're absolutely right. We're I think somewhere in the 40s in the FIFA ranking, and we can't beat somebody who's in the 90s. That kind of sums it all up for us, Ruffy. I can't pick the side. I do think I've got a sneaky feeling though, before we even get to Friday, I've got a sneaky feeling that you don't take Stephen Fletcher there if he's not going to feature.
Mm-hmm. No, I think if you get on the phone to him and you say, look, we really need you, and then you come up and you don't play him, you've got another upset player, so he'll expect to be playing. I think the biggest problem Alex got is I think we're all we were discussing there earlier that Israel's the game. You know, he can't afford to play certain players against Albania that pick up more injuries. Because if he picks up another 3 or 4 injuries during the Albania game, we're going to be even shorter against the most important game against Israel.
Yeah, I'm not sure I buy into that though, because at the end of the day, if Ali's saying we can't actually guarantee, going to any game now and considering ourselves, a shoe-in to win a game, there's no way you can start to bank on the home game rather than Albania. I think you've got to play the strongest you've got and try and get something for it. My only problem with it, and you two can buy into this or not, I think Alec is naturally a defence-minded manager. I don't know about Scotland being able to take things onto the front foot. When I watched Scotland under Gordon Strachan towards the end, I thought they were good at passing the ball, and I thought they could at times. They started to show signs that they could take a game to their opposition. I don't see that at the moment with Alec, and I want to be so positive about it. I've got a lot of time for him, but right now I think apathy set in, and I think we're not a side that looks as if it can actually go and take a game to somebody, especially away from home.
I think it's been very laboured. I think what we've seen of the last half a dozen games or so, I think it's been fractured. I don't think there's been a lot of cohesion there. They've looked very much like a team of individuals rather than a collective. I think these are all things that you would hope have been looked at. But I agree, and I just wonder, I'm listening to your point about Fletcher, and I'm not sure if you're looking at playing your best team, do you look at Patterson? I think he scored three goals in his last 4 games for Cardiff. I think he scored against Liverpool. He's done it on the big night. Do you think, well, we'll go with him, we'll put him in there and give it a go? You've no Griffiths, of course, you've got no Stephen Naismith. So you're disrupting what you already had again. So I think there's huge question marks over the next 2 games. I think you would like to think they're capable of at least coming away with a point from the weekend's game against Albania, and then going to Hampden on Tuesday night against Israel and taking 3. But on paper, it looks very straightforward. In practice, I'm just not sure that this is a Scotland team that have quite won the trust of everyone to guarantee that you could do that.
Well, the only point I would pick up on what you made there, Ali, and this is the front line, Ruffy. I don't think he's disrupting anything because there's nothing to disrupt. I mean, Patterson hasn't had a regular run up front. So, because we've been in a situation where we're desperately hoping that Lee Griffiths can somehow step up to the plate because Stevie Naismith's not there. And even then, apart from, Griffiths' wonder goals against England, we were looking and scraping around and thinking, who are going to be, who are the future Scotland strikers? And if we all said in the summer, if they lose Griffiths, they're in trouble. Well, they're in trouble now. I think the reason why Fletcher might play is because, quite simply, you need an out ball, Ruffy, at times. We don't have anybody that can hold the ball up and get the defence and the midfield up the park.
No, when Russell came on, I was quite impressed with him at Hampden. I thought he gave us a lot of energy, and he was in and running about the box. Anything came into the box, he was maybe just a wee half-yard short. So, no, I think Alec... Well, I don't even know what Alec will do, but I would like to think...
Don't worry, you're with the rest of the 5 million. We don't know either.
I would like to try and see him playing Fletcher and Russell somewhere. And Patterson, I think, would be the player... I think most of these goals, I don't know what he did at the weekend, but most of these goals come from corners, free kicks. He's very good in the box, deliveries into the box. He seems to get a lot of goals. Even when he was at Hearts, he was always there or thereabouts. And so he might be an option for free kicks, corners, that kind of thing. But I just think we need to go there and get something.
Yeah, the one element, listen, you could look at Patterson. You made some great points on his statistics. We can question whether Fletcher starts or whether he comes off the bench. You can start to look and say Johnny Russell. I think Johnny Russell will feature. I read an interesting point from Mikael Lustig this morning when he said, they should be looking towards the core of that Celtic side because, obviously when you consider the Leipzig result, McGregor's a cert to start. But they should be maybe looking to 4 or 5 of them and then a supporting cast. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think key to that is playing them almost in their best positions. I don't think you'll see the Kieran Tierney of Celtic on the right-hand side for Scotland. I also think, I appreciate the point about Johnny Russell. I thought he brought an energy to things too, and you applaud his dedication and the distance he's travelled, but I think when you refer to that interview with Michael Lustig that he also pointed to James Forrest being the best player in the country at the minute, and I think he has to start.
Yeah.
He's got to start, and I think it's really a question over which one of those two you start with. For me, it would be Forrest every day.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm thinking it's an argument you can't. I mean, you look at him against Leipzig. He was the most dangerous player on the park for Celtic, I thought, Ruffy. And again, it'd be hard to argue if they left him out. Then you think to yourself, where's the creativity coming from? Because he has got a trick.
Yeah, and it depends whether Alec thinks that he's going to be brave or good enough to go 3 at the back. Because if you go 3 at the back, it gives you an extra option to play somebody up front. You have to say, is this Albania side going to play 2 strikers up front? I don't think so. When we saw them at Hampden, they were possession in midfield, very comfortable on the ball, but not hurting you in any dangerous places.
Yeah,
so
but they are at home, Ruffy. Suddenly they're a different animal at home.
They don't score more than 1 goal. I don't think, I mean, I haven't seen their whole record, but on paper they don't look as if they're a team who've got 2 goals in them.
And funnily enough, you said there, about 3 at the back. David Weir mentioned this morning, forget about formations and starting to beat the manager over the head. He reckons the current crop are weak-minded.
I'm always fascinated by this argument because, of course, as observers of the game, I think maybe we focus an awful lot on tactics and formations, and there's always a load of weight attributed to them and tactical masterclasses. I'm sure we've all used that expression before, but I think that the point he makes is right, that essentially it comes down to desire within your team and having the right mentality when you walk out the pitch. I think there's no question that the formation you play has an effect on the team, how you line up, what kind of style you're going to play, whether you're fluid enough to change it throughout the game. You see Brendan Rodgers changing the way he's set up repeatedly in games when he's not getting the outcome that he wants. So I think, of course, it has a part to play. I think there's a point there to be made that you can overplay its hand a bit. It essentially comes down to, are the players good enough? Do they want it enough? Is the desire there? Is the heart in the team? And funny, you mentioned the game against Leipzig last Thursday night, and I thought that's what stood out about Celtic's performance, is that it's one of the few big games this season where you've seen the character within the team. There was a bit of spirit within the team. I'm not sure we saw that in the Champions League qualifiers earlier in the campaign, and I don't think you can underestimate that.
Yeah, listen, it's a combination of so many factors, Ruffy. If we're going to be brutal about it, we're not good enough. We haven't got the players, and I'm not even going to go back to your era. We haven't got the players now because Scotland is coming very, very slowly out of the biggest slump it's had. With 20 years of, call it mismanagement, call it lack of the right coaching, lack of enough players coming through. We get to a situation where we don't have the good enough players. It also, again, players, feed on confidence. When you go continually and you're getting thumped and you're also getting slaughtered by all and sundry as well, suddenly, it just has that negative effect. I mean, that's why I thought we were actually starting to go somewhere with Gordon Strachan. I was very much in the camp of saying, keep him on.
Yeah, keep him on, Peter, but that team's no longer there now. All these players are all gone. The players that he relied on, the Snodgrasses and all them, they're all gone now. I said right at the very start, I think we have to really realise that this is possibly the youngest and most inexperienced international side I've seen in a long, long time. These guys are all doing particularly well at their clubs, but they've done nothing in international. You have to look at the caps, you have to look at the goals. None of them scored any goals at any level.
Yeah.
If you look at them, and that's why I'm saying maybe we just have to bite the bullet here and just say, look, all right, we want to qualify, there's no doubt about that, but I don't think we want to jump in this hype of crucifying them so early. They're still learning their trade.
Well, the reality here, and I hate to be down on Scotland, I want them to win, I'm the most fanatical of Scotland fans, but the reality is the players that you say are playing well at their clubs, the clubs are not very good. Celtic are in the Europa League. They're struggling to get through. The standard of Scottish football is way below what it used to be 20 years ago. So, whether it's club football, even the people who are down south who are playing for English clubs, not playing for top English clubs. We were in a situation 10 years ago where Darren Fletcher was the only guy playing for a top English club, and then eventually Charlie Adams sneaked in there, and then one or two others, and then there's been a steady stream. But they're not, one guy, Andy Robertson, is an absolute standout. The rest of them, they're not at the point where you're saying, oh, can't leave them out. They're playing week in, week out for a top club.
There's an element of that I would buy into. Some of it I think is a bit harsh. I think Celtic not progressing into the Champions League was very fine margins. I think a bit of luck, and you go through and you can classify them as a Champions League club for the third successive season in a row.
Yeah, for a fourth-tier Champions League, Ali, they'd be a fourth. They would have been a
pot 14.
They would have been a pot 14.
So I take your point, but I also think that right now you should be good enough. That the players who are there just now should be good enough to be strolled through that Nations League group. Easily. It should be. We're not talking here about your Portugals, your Germanys, France, Belgium. You're not talking about elite level world football. You are talking teams that Scotland are substantially higher placed than in the rankings. And man for man, you should be coming away from that on top. Yeah, and the reason we're not is we're not good enough, Ruffy. That's what it boils down to.
I've just gone back to experience at playing in that level. I mean, I noticed it myself, okay, club level when I was playing. As soon as you make that step up to international football, luckily the Celtic boys are playing that kind of level of football in the Champions League, but there's a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are playing just club football, and they've got to go in there, and with the pressure and everything that comes, you know, everybody wanting you to qualify, that's what you have to deal with. Yep, and amazingly, it's one of those hot topics where we've been talking about it for the entire show, and right across in the women's game, Scotland are taking on the USA. Shelley Kerr and the girls, we'd love them to get a positive result, but I think they know to coin a great phrase, they're going to get leather tonight, but it'll be a great learning curve for them. Absolutely. I mean, they're playing the best in the world tonight, and I think there's a huge, for generations, there's been a professional element in America of female football, and I think it shows in the coaching from a very young age, from scholarship level all the way through. I think they've always been there or thereabouts when it comes to setting the tone for women's football, and yeah, I think it'll be an eye opener tonight, even in terms of things like basics like fitness. They'll be so much fitter if you're playing part time, going against full time players. It's just night and day. Yeah, just before you two guys go, I'm not going to stay either, but as far as the Scottish Cup deal is concerned, there's been a few people being critical of it because obviously, again, it asks the fans to put their hands in their pockets to try and get some of the games which you'll have to pay, round about a tenner for. I don't have a problem with it because I think the whole world's going that way. You're going to have to pay for everything. You're going to have to pay for all those exclusive big games now. So SFA want to bring in money. We can't knock them when they don't have enough money. So you can see where they're going with this. Yeah, I think overall it's probably a positive deal. I think any deal you're getting at the minute for Scottish football, you have to look to embrace. But I also take the point that you're asking again for people to dip into their pocket for a third football subscription. I do think it's a lot. I think there are games that would have been free access previously that you're now going to have to pay for. So you can understand that it might not be accessible to everyone. Yeah, maybe it's just a case that people will actually, get to the saturation point, Ruffy, where they think, I'll wait and I'll watch the highlights of that. Yeah, well, we got a wee sort of a glimpse of it at the Aberdeen semi-final. Yeah. There was 12,000 people decided not to come down for that game. Maybe now the finances are determining where people go, whether they sit in their armchair or whether they go to games. And it's up to them to make the decision whether they pay the extra. I hope I'm not misquoting, but I can remember reading an article in the Daily Record many, many years ago by the great Alec Cameron, who said the television will kill the game. Whether he's right or wrong is open to debate. I'm sure chief executives and chairman would argue the point. Great to have Alison McConnell on the programme. She'll be back with us, I'm almost certain. And from Ruffy and myself, thanks for watching. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us Monday to Friday. Thanks for watching.